So we've made in our first video a mock-up of a wireframe of our homepage, and now I want to make a mock-up of the recipe page. And to do that, I'm going to use something called components to make life a little bit easier. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my home and I'm going to option drag so that I have a copy of it. I'm actually going to set this below because it's like I kind of try to lay out my pages a bit like they are in a sitemap. Oops, I just option dragged rather than just dragging. So used to am I making copies of my pages. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to rename this guy from home 1. This is going to be recipe page. All right, great. Because I know I want my nav to be the same, I want my footer to be the same, so that's going to make life easier. But I don't want this, and I don't want you guys. You know what? I'm going to leave that header. I'm going to get rid of these though. So this is going to be feature recipes, and this one's going to be all recipes because I want to have this feature, and eventually I want this feature to be something where maybe it's scrolling, and then I'll have all recipes. And for that, I think I'm actually going to set these guys in a little bit so that way I have room for a little thing on the two sides, and then would have all recipes underneath. Now, what is, instead of just having these guys and like say I want to make a change, this guy, I'm going to have this be my feature recipe card. And I'm going to take this guy down, line that up, put that there, and I'm going to leave that as a recipe card. I'm going to go ahead and delete you. Okay. Now, let's just say I want to make sure that I've got room. I can do 2 stacks here. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this guy up a wee bit. Great. Make my recipe page a little bit smaller. Now, I've shown you how you could do a repeat grid to make more of these. But what if you wanted your featured recipe to look a little bit different from these recipes here? And I don't want to have to go in and copy paste and then change them all the time. Because if I say copy paste and I move this guy over to be in the center, if I then decide, okay, instead of that, I want it to be bold italic, then I have to go in and change bold italic here. And, you know, if it's fine if I've got like 3, but it can be a real pain if I've got a lot. There's this really handy thing called a component. Now, a component is anything that you're maybe using a lot throughout the site that you want to have like a single template for. And my nav is going to be another thing that will be really useful to make a component of. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select this group. Now, I'm actually going to group my nav text, my bear icon, and my nav together and make it a new group. And this is going to be my navigation. This is my main navigation. Components need to either be a single element or a group. If you want to have multiple things and you make them a component, it will automatically group it for you. So to make it a component, I can just do Command K, or I can go ahead and do Object and then make component. Command K. Now you see how it went from being that blue box to this green box, and it has this triangle here. That's showing that it's a component. You'll also notice that this guy's popped up, component main, it's its default state. We're going to get into doing buttons in a little bit, and a component is the only thing that can have different states. But components are also super handy in terms of keeping everything consistent. I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing with my footer. I'm going to group those. I'm going to grab both of those. Hello, you two. Group them. It really doesn't want me selecting both here. Oh, because I already grouped it. Oh, that's silly. Command K makes it a footer. Okay. Now I'm going to go out. I'm going to delete out from this guy. You. The bear. Come on, bear. Come with me. And I'm going to delete out my footer. Hey, you. There we go. Now, I can grab components from this other libraries panel here. It's going to show me all of my components underneath components. The other thing that I can do is I can go ahead and add, say, character styles So if, for example, I wanted the fact that this guy is Helvetica New 70 bold, if I click plus, that's giving me that, and I can go ahead and say that that is my H1. And then that will help me know, or I can actually, maybe that might be better at the beginning. H1 Helvetica 70. Maybe this guy, I want that to be H2. And that guy, I want to be H3. So you can keep track of different styles, but you also have these components. And the nice thing is, from the component, I can just drag and drop, and you see it's got my component here. So I can line that up. It's happy. Awesome. I'm going to drag my footer down the bottom here. My footer. Awesome. So the nice thing about this is, if I want to say change home recipes, remember I didn't like the sizing? What if I styled all my pages and then decided I didn't like the sizing? Well, I can go ahead and actually change the main navigation as the component rather than inside the page. So I can also override things on a particular page. So let's go ahead and override on the page first, and then I'll show you how you can change everything. So I'm going to go ahead and double click into here, and I've got my fill and my border. Now let's say we've been doing style on the site, and I've decided I want it this really atrociously bright red. I'm going to go ahead, I've made it bright red. You notice it's not bright up here. Now I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy, and I want to edit the actual component. Reveal component and assets. Come on. Why are you not letting me do it? Oh, because for some reason I dropped it inside the recipe card. Sorry, that's part of why it's grumpy. Oh, you can see, by the way, when I've done this, that this has got an override on the component because it has that little dot in the middle of it. So if I click on that guy, I can then get to my edit main component. It was just grumpy because I had it inside of another group. Now I want to change the size of this text from 50. Let's say I wanted to do 60. Home, recipes, tips, about, contributors. I'm going to have to change my spacing when I do this. Okay, so now I get my group. Instead of 130, I want 100. Oops. Nope, the whole group, guys. Not just that. 100. There we go. Now, that's bigger. Hey, it did that, but it kept my override of the color. So if you override it locally, a component will keep that local override, but if you change the main component itself, that change will be applied to any of the other ones. And you can tell whether or not a component is overridden by, so that's the main one. You can tell because it's kind of like this solid triangle here. I'm going to go into the recipe page. You'll see that it is hollow because it's a copy of the component, and this one shows that it has been overridden because it's got that like little dot in the middle of the diamond. I'm going to go ahead and make this fill back to that color because, oh my God, that was hurting my eyes. And now that explained what happened with it not liking it because of the fact it was inside the other. So I can do the same thing with my recipe card. So if I wanted to make this guy is my feature recipe card. And I want to make that slightly different. I'm going to go ahead, Command K or Object Make Component. So now I've made that as a component. I'm going to go ahead to my libraries. I'm going to drag out a couple copies of this. Again, I'm going to center that guy, drag out a third copy of this. Great. 62 in between. Very happy. So now if I want this to be styled differently than the other recipes, and I'm going to go ahead and make this guy, I'm going to make that a component. That's my regular recipe card. Make a copy of you. Yeah. Make sure you line up with the other guys. Drag out more. And you see how it's not making any new pieces. It's just basically like copying this guy over and over again. It's going to make life, it kind of makes life easier. And last but not least, now when I made my wireframe, if I then talk to the client and we go, okay, like looking at this at, let's go to 50%. I'm looking at it at 50%, and you know what? I really want, if it's the featured recipe, again, I don't want it to be regular type. I feel like it should be bold italic, and you notice it changes all the way across. And for the featured recipe, instead of having 3 lines of small text, I actually want it to be 2 lines, and I want them to be bigger text. So I'm going to make it this big. And I want a second one. There we go. So now you can see that text would be bigger text than that text. And this whole thing. And in fact, you know what? With that being bigger text, let's go ahead and make this 45. Awesome. And then these guys, I want to be, I'm going to kind of center that a little bit more. A little bit. 20 in between each. There we go, 21. That's happy. And so these guys, you can see that they're normal. They're the other size. You know what? I actually want that. I want that bigger. It doesn't matter. This is just a mock-up, but you know, you get the idea. This is what we designers are like. So now I'm a little bit happier with that. So I'm going to go ahead. So now I've got this page and these guys, and that way I know if I edit any one, it'll change to all of it, and that's going to make my life easier, especially as we then move into making our mock-ups. Again, we'll just have to edit my navigation once when I decide how I actually want it, what colors I actually want to have in there, what fonts I actually want, and then it'll automatically flow. And the nice thing about these character styles as well is if I use these guys, then I have like written out for me, these are the exact styles that I'm using. So that'll make my life easier too. I'll go ahead and save this. In the next step, I'm going to show you how to use components in order to make buttons in case you want there to be, or to change states in case you want things like hovering to bring down parts of your navigation, or you want any other changes.